Hey guys, I know this is a bit late in the month to be doing a wrap up, but I've seriously been swamped with so many things at the end of August and at the beginning of this month. It's just been very hectic. So I actually haven't had time to film any videos. The way I read in August was so different than what I'm used to. In August, I was swamped with doctor appointments and running to Ohio to get medical stuff. So I didn't have an extreme amount of time to read, like physically open a book and read. So what I did is all but 2 of the books I read this month were read via audiobook. The first 3 books I read were the Miss Peregrines Home for Peculiar Children trilogy. And I have to say, these books were not what I was expecting. The first book was kind of slow, and I really didn't care for a few parts of it, so I only gave it like a 3 stars. The second book was a whole lot better, and I enjoyed it a whole lot more, so I gave it a 4 stars. And then the third book, which was by far my favorite in the trilogy, got a 4 stars. But it was more like a 4.5 stars. But when I started this series, I basically had to force myself to just not think about it and just jump right into the books. And it was a lot easier to do that since it was an audiobook. But I did follow along for at least the points where I wasn't driving. That way I could look at all of the pictures that goes along with the stories it was telling, which I have to say, these pictures is one of the main reasons I didn't want to read the book. That and the weird covers. But I'm super happy I did, because truthfully, the pictures, the stories that were being told about them really fit well into the story, and they were a whole lot less creepy than I thought they would be. The next 3 books I read were The Kane Chronicles by Rick Riordan. I do have a spoiler-free review up for these 3 books, which I will leave linked in the description box below, where I go into detail about my thoughts about them. So writing wise, I gave The Red Pyramid a 3 stars, and then The Throne of Fire and The Serpent's Shadow both got 4 stars. I think Throne of Fire was more like a 3.5, but it was leaning more towards a 4 stars, so that's why I give it 4 stars. And these books, out of all 3 of them, Serpent's Shadow is definitely the best. More because it was so action-packed, where the other 2 books, the first one was more information driven to introduce you to the Egyptian mythology world, and Throne of Fire just introduced a lot of new characters. In comparison to his other series, this one is definitely at the very bottom for me, but I'm still really happy that I read them. Then after I read The Kane Chronicles, I read their survival guide and Demigods and Magicians. Both of these got a 4 out of 5 stars. This book is just perfect to read, even if you don't want to read the series, but you just want to know more about Egyptian mythology. And this book I loved for a couple of reasons. The first one is there are a lot of loose ends at the end of Serpent's Shadow that this book just ties up perfectly, even though I really would have enjoyed an actual full book to tie up all these loose ends. And the second reason I love this book so much is the Kanes get to work with Percy and Annabeth to tie up all of the loose ends. And I would highly recommend that you read this book after you have read the Percy Jackson series, the Heroes of Olympus series, and the Kane Chronicles. If you don't, there are a lot of terms that will just confuse you, and there are also a lot of references that you just won't get. Then I read The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. And I finished this book in a day. The audiobook was only like 6.5 hours long. When this book said that it was about the kids that aren't the chosen one in this story, I thought we'd be hearing stories from multiple points of view, or just like several mini stories throughout the book, something along those lines. I didn't expect it to be from one character's point of view and it's just about him and his friends, and about their normal lives and how they're affected by what happens to the chosen ones, like the backlash of what happens to them hits the normal people. It's really very interesting in that aspect, and I did give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The only issue I really had with the book was the fact that the two people that I wanted to get together didn't get together. And I was rooting for them from the very beginning, especially since the couple that did get together, I mean, if you look back on events, it makes sense, but it's also aggravating because it comes out of nowhere. And then something that was hilarious that kind of confused me when I was listening to the audiobook, because I did some of it while driving, was at the beginning of each chapter, it starts with a continuation of the stories of the chosen ones. And I like how I think 3 or 4 of the chosen characters are named Finn. It's like when you are watching anime and you play Spot the protagonist, and it's usually the character with either a different colored hair or this wild hair like Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's like, Spot the chosen one in this book, his name is Finn. What I loved most about these mini pieces to the chosen one story wasn't only that they tied in with the events that was happening to our characters, but the fact that they were told in such an amusing way, kind of like they were making fun of the chosen ones. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because they were meant to be ridiculous and written like this, but it was kind of like reading really bad fan fiction. I don't really know if I'll be reading any more of Patrick Ness books. I really want to, but when I looked at all of his books on Goodreads, none of them really stood out to me, and I didn't really have an interest in reading those kinds of books. Maybe later on down the road, but at the moment I don't. And the last book I read or listened to was Gemini, and I love the audiobook for this so much because it's told from different, like, what, a half dozen different narrators at least. These books are just told in such a unique and fun way. I mean, I really love them. And like I said about Illuminate, it's like pages like this where it's all a mishmash of different things. It's like you really don't know what order to read any of that in. And there's also sound effects going along with the narrations. I feel like you could read the book or you could listen to the audiobook, but I feel like listening to the audiobook while you're following along, you just get the full experience that way. I actually had a little bit of time to film this video and my TBR for September, but I didn't do it because the first copy I got of this book was really damaged. And if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen pictures of it, but this back here, where you lift up this page and like it was completely detached from the spine and all the pages were coming out. It's like, that is not good at all. So I ended up contacting the people I bought the book from, and they sent me a replacement copy. And I'm happy to say it's in perfect condition. Gemini got a 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait for the 3rd and final book to this trilogy. Really, actually don't want it to end. So that is the 8 books and 2 little novella things that I read in the month of August. I am really super duper happy about this because this put me 3 books ahead for my Goodreads reading goal. And it really takes the pressure off me because I have a lot of stuff coming in September. I'm actually dog sitting for the rest of this week, and then I'm on vacation all of next week. So it really takes the stress off. You guys should let me know in the comments below what books you guys have read this month, and it would really help me out if you guys would recommend audiobooks to me in the comments, preferably ones that have like multiple narrators, because I really want to listen to more audiobooks, but they are really expensive and I'm not sure which ones I want. But yeah, that is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!